All right, let's rock and roll. I don't even know if this is episode 2 or 3. We've definitely filmed 3 of these and shot 3 of these, but you may not see 2 because it was kind of boring. Before we even get into this, I've got some stuff that's on my mind and some shit that bothers me in the industry. But I'm going to taste test a beer or 2 so that by the time I get to that industry topic, I'm a little more lively for you guys. I have my guest today is co-founder of MyCarrier, Michael Bookout. What's funny is I've known Bookout now for, I'm sucking at math, probably 20 years.
At least 20 years.
Yeah. He had worked for my dad in the good old days at Motor Cargo.
Well, let's stop that right there.
Okay.
We'll cheers that.
Cheers to Motor Cargo. That's got to be like
I don't know.
a nice amber.
Oh, did we explain what we're doing with the beer yet?
We just got right into drinking. I guess we're trying out new beers.
We're in trucking. That's what we do.
That's why I love the industry. It's just full of blue-collar folks.
It really is.
Yeah.
Every episode, Bobby and his guests will try new drinks, food, or experiences. Some of these will be blind tests, food challenge, or some other form of challenge. This week is beer. The products used in this video or any other video do not support or endorse this in any way, shape, or form. This is only meant as entertainment, not product endorsement or behaviors or activities.
Just if you're a driver, don't do this at 10 a.m. like me.
No. Unless you're out of hours, then you're fine.
Hey, if you're out of hours, then so be it. But it's probably because some a-hole didn't load you on time and now you can't go anywhere.
What is
God
that?
bless the
That's a little
DOT.
heavy. That's a little heavy for 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna switch.
I haven't had breakfast yet, so it's kind of like a meal.
I'm gonna switch to tequila real quick.
The palate cleanser for today is Casamigos Reposado, characterized by a sweet vanilla finish. Brought to you by the guy who played Bad Nipples.
All right, we're trying some of this Casamigos out, and I'm a big tequila connoisseur. It's like my drink. This is made by George Clooney, and
I don't think it's made by him. I think it's sponsored by him.
either way, he puts his face on it, and I don't know how well he actually does at making tequila. It's almost like he pretended, kind of like the ER doctor he was. I don't really like it.
No.
I'll drink it anyway. Cleanses the palate. All right, let's get right into this. So I want to talk about something that is it's happened to every LTL rep in the industry, and damn it confuses the heck out of me. Not only from a macro but a micro standpoint, right? Because you got to keep your people happy. But on the macro, I've never understood cutting your own revenue or margin out just to switch business to another provider in some way. But anyway, let's put some context around this. Mike, you've probably seen this happen a million times. You started selling freight right at the real rise of the 3PL, right? When
I'm a little older than that. I started in 99.
99.
So yes.
All right, look alive. Cash Money taking over for the 99 and 2000. So that's when you started. And you kind of came into that industry. And tell me about the first time you actually saw an aggregator from a 3PL.
Yeah, so 2003, 2004. I was in local Phoenix, downtown, zip code 85019. Still remember the customer. Walked into his dock. He had an old Microsoft computer, big old screen, and he had a shipment going. Good account of mine, right? Good regional account for Motor Cargo. He was shipping up to the PNW, and typical order was 2,000 pounds, a couple pallets. It would generally run about $500-600. And I noticed all of a sudden he stopped shipping with me. So I stopped at his facility, walked in, and he goes, "Hey, check this out." Go over to the screen, and it was freightquote.com. And he had carriers like Roadrunner, Yellow, Central Transport, all in there loaded. Max cost was $330. Blew me away. Because the guy had like a 70% discount. You know, back at that point, 70% discount, that's a big discount.
Yeah. Now we're floating in the 95s, 96s.
You were king shit back then. So scared the living hell out of me. I thought the industry was going to change at that moment. Took a little bit longer. Like I said, it was about 2003, 2004. Yeah. But what absolutely amazed me at that point, I recognized I work for a carrier. This is something, I have no idea what it was, but the rates they are getting to this type of customer are absolutely insane. I couldn't even get there with a 90% discount. So it made no sense to me whatsoever that a company would offer rates to a third party to be able to resell them and still make margin on it.
Oh, it's nuts to me. But since then, we've seen this evolve. We've seen this grow. And this is something that would chap my hide as an LTL rep. We've seen the scenario play out several times. So let's just dive into this. You're my customer. I'm your local rep. I've had you for 3-4 years of business.
Yes.
3PL calls in. Maybe they make way with a CFO, business owner. And all of a sudden, they say, hey, I can get you cheaper rates. I'm going to go negotiate on your behalf. Mind you, you've had direct business. You've been trying to get the best deal since day one through your local rep. Now that 3PL comes in, goes right to pricing, submits the RFP. Mind you, you still probably have direct pricing intact at this moment. They've just executed an LOA to let this person go talk to the carrier on your behalf. All of a sudden, they submit new pricing, which ultimately lowers the carrier's margin a little bit.
Yep.
Right? Because it's going to be more aggressive.
But it's better for me as a shipper.
Better for you as a shipper. And now I'm the local rep, and my pricing department just gave this customer, through a way of a middleman, better pricing than I can ever get my hands on. Now, I, as a local rep, honestly, I just go get a new job somewhere else because that would gut me. That's like picking up a fish and gutting them right there.
Absolutely.
And they will never understand that, and that's just the rep. Now, what is the customer's perception of that?
Customer's perception of that is that I love my local rep, but I don't have any buying power with that local rep. I can go to a 3PL and I've got buying power over there because that's what they're selling me. They're telling me that they've got a group of negotiators that are better than my local rep. Mm-hmm. They can go negotiate on my behalf and get me a better rate. And I don't care if there's any margin there because ultimately my cost is lower. That's all I care about as a shipper.
I get it. And some people are going to look at it very commoditized depending on their product. But at the end of the day, that made no sense to me.
No.
It happens in no other industry that I can think of. Name an industry this happens in.
And to be honest with you, a lot of times the 3PL is telling you they're negotiating on your behalf, but they've already got a blanket that's deeper. They're just taking their time to make it look like they're working. And let me also back up a second. I love 3PLs. I love carriers. I love technology companies. But we all do things a little bit differently, and some of these things don't make sense. And these are one of those things that doesn't make any sense.
I'm with you. There's dumbassery in every industry.
There is. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense how a carrier can give a better rate to a 3PL for that rep to go sell better than their local rep that's in the street face to face, that they've got a high cost associated with that local rep.
Yep.
Right? You got a high cost associated with local rep. You should be able to give that rep your best pricing to give to your customer to get that business direct.
Do you know where I first saw this at? Now you can dig with me on this because we both did auto sales for a little bit.
We did.
We did car sales. I recommend it to everybody. I know everybody looks at car sales guys like they're sleazy used car guys.
No.
You want a crash course in sales, go work for a dealership and just try to survive. Anyway, I digress there. But this drove me nuts. This is why I left the car sales business. I was, selling cars every day, taking ups, whatever, doing it the hard way. And the customer didn't want to buy the car direct from me. 2 days later, he bought it from Fleet Sales on the internet for $2,000 less than I could sell it to him because it was the internet price.
That was me in Fleet Sales.
Yeah. But that's the only thing I could think of where
that was it.
It made no effing sense. And I quit that day.
I would have too.
I just walked out because I was like, well, if you're going to not allow me to leverage this, because I even tried to get there with the new car guy at that time. Oh, no, we can't do this deal. Well, fuck you. Turns out I can go on the internet and get this deal done right now.
Well, that game changed in that car business, if we want to go there, was the internet, right? It showed MSRP. It showed what cost was. Mm-hmm. And it also allowed for people to go shop much quicker, find the vehicle they want, negotiate a price, and walk into the store direct.
But still, as a sales rep, why do you need me anymore? Right? So, how do you keep morale at your company as an LTL carrier, not lose the business that you have as a shipper? And to me, you're like in this cyclical cycle until you snap a line and just say, you know what? I'm protecting my flock and the business I have. I don't foresee this changing. Now, we saw this in a similar industry. That's the airline industry.
Yes.
They snapped that line. And now, honestly, when Kayak and Travelocities came out, they were pretty cool. I went to them, I'll be honest with you, because it was cheaper. Then that line got snapped, and a few providers like Southwest, they just never played that game, right? No. There's carriers like that in our industry, like one I can think of is R&L. They do a pretty good job, maintaining direct business and just kind of holding that foothold. Now, I still know they do stuff with 3PLs, but if you look at it like on an aggregate scale, I guarantee you they're lesser than, say, like a Central Transport.
Exactly.
Or, God rest their soul, Central Freight Lines.
I would say they don't play in the general blanket pricing as much as other carriers do.
Exactly.
They're more client specific. They want to understand what they're handling, what the parameters are of that specific customer. Old Dominion's in that bucket as well.
And make no mistake,
I think you see more carriers moving that way, right?
Yep.
Because they're starting to understand. I mean, if you look at the industry over the last 15 years, you had 3PLs that really showed the carriers the way to go price local business, right? It makes no sense if I've got a shipper that ships 10 shipments a month to have to go down a path to go get a tariff that's going to take 14 days to get, right? The local rep's got to submit the pricing, and then it's got to go through justification. A pricing guy's got to touch it. Then it's got to go through the traffic department.
You're making me drink.
Right? The onboarding process has got to be redone, and the 3PLs showed you how to do that properly. And that's why the 3PLs are still very successful to this day.
It's no different than Travelocity showed the blueprint to the airline industry.
They have a better onboarding process than the carriers currently have directly. And the carriers know it. Right? They'll come out, and the majority of carriers, they're going to be honest with themselves. They'll say, yeah, our onboarding process sucks.
Yep.
We've got to change that. We've got to be easier to do business with our customers. If I'm a new customer starting up and I go type in looking for LTL freight rates, the first results I'm going to get in Google are all 3PLs. And guess
100%.
what? I'm going to call those 3PLs up, and I'm going to get a hell of a price with a great carrier and be able to conduct business that day.
Yep. Well, you got to admit, they offer one hell of a vehicle that seems a lot more appealing.
They do.
Up front. I mean, curb appeal has a lot to do with it. I mean, you do it when you sell houses. If I pull up to a house and it looks like shit, chances are
I'm not going inside.
It's shitty, right? That curb appeal matters to these customers. Perception matters. And I think that we're kind of in the beginning stages of this changing. But as far as I'm concerned, this blueprint's been sitting on the table with a way to flip the model and snap that line.
It is, but we also got to remember carriers are in a very asset-heavy industry. Right.
100%.
And so anytime you make that change has got to be done the correct way because they've got tons of data, right, that stacks up for the last 30, 40 years. They've got to be able to take those systems, integrate them into a new process workflow without disrupting the business they currently have, to where a 3PL sits on top of that layer, right? So they can really adjust on the fly and really make those adjustments much quicker than a carrier can. And that's where I think the carriers hold back a little bit and are a little bit timid on jumping all the way in.
Now here's another thing that you really hit on right here, right? Entry to the game. And this is why LTL's kind of stagnated, in my opinion, because it's probably been since like 1985 since there's been a new true LTL carrier entry into the game. I'm talking an actual carrier. And because of what you just said, it's so real estate and asset heavy that you got to put some chips in the game to start from scratch, or you acquire an existing relic.
Well, I look at, you got FedEx that come in the game, right? They bought 3 carriers. So they buy Watkins, they bought Viking, and they bought American Freightways. Right? And to my knowledge, and I could be misspeaking, but I still think they have a couple different operating systems because it is very difficult to transition that over to one operating system.
Well, part of that too is their different service levels. I mean, they do a phenomenal job.
Phenomenal.
But it is kind of confusing with
figured out.
One carrier with several different scats and service levels.
But you're right. As a new carrier coming out, no, it's all been kind of a retread. You had UPS come in there and buy overnight and motor cargo. Right? So you don't really have anybody entering in new. What's going to be interesting is to see how like a Knight Swift and the purchase of AAA Cooper and MME, right? Are they going to continue that purchase spree and go nationwide and create a new national carrier? I could see something like that, or they might go the Estes route. They might go the Estes route, right? Estes is a national carrier, but they're very regionally, operationally based.
Yeah,
it's a phenomenal model.
So, how do you flip that model? You know what I mean? How do they take the blueprint that's there, and I don't want to say it, modernize themselves from the front end customer experience? They do a phenomenal job operating freight. You don't need to change that.
They're starting to figure it out. That's what I love about it, right? And with a carrier, to me, it goes back to sales, right? So there's 2 sales guys in my world, right? So you've got a sales guy that's really quick, right? Can sell anybody on the phone. And to me, that's kind of more your 3PL sale, right?
Yep.
Boom. Hey, I'm on the phone. Here's what I got. Here's my rates. They're cheaper. Great. That customer probably will leave if they see cheaper rates. Or you can kind of go the LTL route, right? Where it's a little bit slower of a sell. right? You really build that relationship up. I think what the carriers are doing is they're taking their time and making sure, because they are very asset-based, they're taking their time to make sure that what they're going to do is going to work. They're not looking for today, they're looking for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And those carriers, and we're seeing a lot more invest in technology and trying to change this process. They're bringing in different breeds of pricing guys, right? They're starting to look at dynamic pricing. They're looking at sales channels and how they can do it differently. How can they reduce but increase their sales, right? So I think from a carrier perspective, they're going to catch up real quick before the 3PLs even know it. And the good 3PLs will always stay around, right?
Yeah.
There's customers that need the services. There are some phenomenal 3PLs that are out there today that do really good work for their customers.
They're more like boutique, though. They're doing, managed services. It's all customer specific pricing. It's nuanced, and I'm not trying to blast blasphemy on those guys. Like, you are skilled. You're a solutions provider. This confuses me more on the transactional side.
But a lot of the transactional ones are kids out of college that are picking up the phone, have no idea about this industry of what an NMFC item number is, how to calculate density.
But here's what I don't understand, right? Every store, Safeway, Fry's, Walmart, you can go in there and get a fucking store brand right now.
Hold on.
But
I need another beer.
Nobody else can sell equal cheaper. You know what I mean? Or whatever the Walmart brand is.
What grade would you give that beer? Is that a Walmart brand, or is that a little bit higher, like a AJ's? Maybe a Whole Foods.
It's not AJ's or Whole Foods, and if it is, it probably costs $20 a beer.
That's high class. Thank you, sir.
It almost tastes reminiscent of like a Dos Equis Amber or Michelob. What was the
Michelob Dark?
The whatever it was.
It was
can't
dark.
think of it. Yeah, it was the dark one.
Like a Negro Modelo?
Yes.
I'm there.
Una mas, best summarized as the Taco Bell of beers. Looks Mexican, but it is not.
That was another thing that pissed me off when bars would charge premiums for things that are just domestic. Like, they would take a fancier American beer and call it imported. I've seen them do this, and it drives me nuts. Just to get more money out of it. I'm like, this is an American beer. Why is it in the imports? Because it's dark? Because it's not a lager? I know that's totally off topic.
No, I
never understood that either.
I don't like it.
Today's episodes, things I don't understand that we do.
Take another shot.
Have some of this George Clooney in a cup. I'll say this,
it's
though.
Pretty. It's pretty.
Not only could The Rock kick his ass, but he does way better job at tequila.
This one looks dark. It's going to be like a coffee nitro.
Oh, this is a stout. This is like Guinnessy, I bet.
You think?
Good thing I didn't eat breakfast yet. This should hit the spot early. This has got some flavor notes to it.
Oh. Like an oatmeal stout?
Oh, yeah. And so that's a funny story, right? We were at this Whole Foods meeting, and my buddy Luke at the time had done the icebreaker because they had poured like wine at the table for everybody. And you know those new like dinners you're doing, and everybody's awkward because nobody's really talked or met yet.
Yep.
And he was just like, he did this one.
With a beer?
With the wine, I was like, those must be hints and notes of this, that, and the other. And it was just a good one. I'm like,
it's just full of
you're
shit.
so full of shit. You can't even smell.
That's not bad. I like this one better. You all right there?
Yeah. I just almost missed my mouth, but we caught it, which is surprising because I got a big mouth. It almost tastes like...
You have to have a big mouth to be in this industry.
It's got like a desserty beer. There's a sweet taste to this.
There is a little sweet on the end.
Yeah.
Kind of tickles me.
Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout covers two bases when feeling sadness: chocolate and alcohol.
I don't know. But, like, this has been a pretty good episode of things I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not too bad.
What else don't we understand in this industry? Oh, 3PLs.
I don't understand. I get it in some respects, but like rolling out all these weirdo accessorials, but not being able to rate them online or over API,
that makes
and
no
then
sense.
just hitting your customer with a bill. This is like me going to the register and like paying for milk, and they're like, "Oh, hey, there's an udder processing fee now because this cow had 6 udders instead of 4. You have to pay $2 more."
And see, that's something where the 3PLs can hide that cost because they're making margin on it.
Good call, and the customer never sees it.
The customer never sees it.
Man.
And it's still creating the issue that's not getting fixed in the industry. That's something that doesn't make sense to me. Does not make any sense. And the other thing that doesn't make sense to me is the reps on the local street take the calls from the 3PLs all the time to go track down the freight or their issues.
I don't get that either.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
No. Well,
Yeah, well, when I was a 3PL, if I had a big account, I'd call the local rep, and if I knew XYZ freight was in there and they were getting the majority of business from me, I'd call up that local rep and say, hey, I'm with this 3PL, and I need you to go take care of this customer. I'm giving you a lot of business. Can you please go? And that's why, as 3PLs, we didn't have really big, major expense accounts because we utilized the carrier's expense
Your
accounts.
expenses are
Because we
technology.
knew every single rep had a credit card, and they could go take the business for me.
Yeah.
They could go handle it. They could go purchase. Hey, go take him to a game. Oh, okay, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And there's justification behind it from the carrier perspective because they'll look at that account and say, oh, this guy gives us $30,000 a month.
I think let's cheers to flipping the fucking model here. I think we're pretty close.
We're getting there.
Yeah. It's because, in my eyes, MyCarrier's a vehicle to do this goddamn thing.
Things I don't understand is last month we hit $60 million in LTL revenue.
Yeah.
In 1 month. It took us at our last 3PL, I mean, what's that run rate? 600 million a year? 720 million a year? That's pretty good after a couple of shots. See, that's very simple math, but I got it done.
Yeah.
It took us over 10 years to hit 200 million in LTL revenue at our last 3PL. These carriers that are partnered with us have done that in less than really about 2.5 years. And we're going to hit $1 billion platform. The carriers will hit $1 billion platform that they have built themselves to go compete. And think about it, right? When we first got in this industry, who was the big monster? Right? It was C.H. Robinson.
Well, you had CH Global and Worldwide for the LTL portion.
Well, Echo.
Probably your big three. Echo.
Echo
I
was
forgot
real
about
big.
Echo.
You can't forget about Echo.
I'm not. I'll echo that.
You will echo that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mark Rodini. He's a good guy.
There you go. I worked at a 3PL. You worked at a 3PL, but I also worked at a carrier. I've also been a shipper, so it's not like I'm blasting this from a one-sided view here.
I don't want to go back to shipper days. I worked in a freezer for Shamrock Foods. I still have my freezer gear.
But you know what? When it's fucking 120 here in Arizona, how nice is that icebox? That's the best part about Motor Cargo. Was door 1 or 2 that had the fucking LTL reefer?
Yep.
That's right.
Had the meat curtains hanging down.
Yeah. Now if you're doing LTL reefer, it's because your dock workers are smoking weed. LTL reefer used to be a thing, and we did it pretty well. Now it's like nobody does it.
I had a lot of good accounts on that reefer business.
Amen to that one, man.
20% discount.
You're aging yourself.
I am. Damn it.